So this is John for the Red Dice Diaries talking to
Graham Bottley of Arion Games.
Brilliant. And obviously Arion Games is responsible for the excellent re-release of the Advanced Fighting Fantasy game. Very highly recommend that. And what are some of the other things that you do as well as the Advanced Fighting Fantasy?
Well, at last year's Dragonmeet we released Maelstrom Doomsday, which we did a very, very successful Kickstarter for, about 7.5 times the target. And that's been out a year now and is selling very, very well. But we've also got a Kickstarter live at the moment until next Tuesday, which is about the 9th of December. And so that's for Sorcerers of Turek. So we're already at double our funding target. But if we get to the next stretch goal, all backers will get the setting guide as well as just the core.
Is that an original system or that you come with yourselves?
No, it's based on the D6 system from West End Games.
Oh, it's
the Star Wars system.
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
So it's a well play tested, there's D6 Fantasy, there's D6 Space, there's Star Wars. So it's been out there, there's Mini 6, there's all sorts of incarnations. But this game is my take on Ars Magica.
Right, yeah.
I wouldn't be able to play Ars Magica with my group because they wouldn't be prepared to do the 3, 4, 5 hours prep in between each game session. Not going to happen.
That is a lot of problem with some games nowadays.
Yes.
Once you get into it, it's fine, but to get over that initial hurdle...
I'd love to play it,
yeah,
but I know it's not going to happen. So this is my reaction, if you like. So we've got a different setting, which I'll come to in a moment, but we've still got the freeform magic system. You still combine a control with an element. Summon fire, or shape fire, or destroy fire, and so on. Cast your spells. Every player still has a sorcerer character. They have a major character who might be a powerful warrior, a hero, a merchant, a noble, a high priest, whatever. And then you have 3 minor characters, a soldier, a servant, and a specialist.
Okay, yeah.
Now, the specialist could be something like a minor mage. They're able to do little bits of magic, but nothing more. Or they could be a hunter, or a scholar, or any sort of specialist that way. And you pick and choose the appropriate character depending on the mission you have to do. And so the setting is very inspired by Sumeria, Babylonia, Arabian Nights, Conan, Sword and Sorcery, that sort of thing. So it's quite a dark setting. You've got deserts, you've got strange creatures, quite humanocentric.
Yeah. So sticking very much within the whole swords and sorcery.
It is very much sword and sorcery. So, but the only way that a sorcerer can ever improve their magical ability is by researching artifacts left behind by the ancients.
Okay.
And so these are powerful artifacts, but they don't do anything. So you might find an artifact, and it's a statue of a lion, and it breathes gently out of its mouth, and it's warm to the touch. But it doesn't do anything. You can't make it throw fireballs or anything like that. It just is. And by deconstructing it, the mage can learn about summon and fire and a bit about air. And so
you're learning the individual elements.
Yes,
together.
But you've destroyed that artifact now, so none of your other sorcerer companions can benefit from it.
Right, I see.
And you've got to dig these up out of the desert and the ruins and the buildings left behind by these ancients thousands of years ago. And they lived in all sorts of things: ziggurat temples, impossibly tall towers, underground dungeon complexes, caves, huge mansions, islands, all sorts of things. So it gives the GM a reason for dungeon.
Yeah, you've got a nice solid justification for why you go into a dungeon.
But of course, if you send a sorcerer to try and find these, then he can't be at home deconstructing an artifact, which takes months and months. So he doesn't learn any new magic. So if one sorcerer goes out on every adventure, his fellow sorcerers are investigating the artifacts he's bringing back, and he never advances.
I see.
But if you send out your major character and your soldiers and things, they're not nearly as powerful as a sorcerer. Are they going to bring them back? So there's all these things. So it's troop style play like Ars Magica. You've got flexible magic like Ars Magica, but the setting is very different. It's not historically based. So there are elements of Persia and Sumeria, but it's not Sumeria. So you're not going to get someone turning around and saying, actually, that metal alloy didn't exist in 1272. It wasn't until 1294 that...
So it's more sort of inspired by
Inspired by, yeah. So sort of, a flavour of that. So the thing is, the manuscript is almost written.
Okay.
We've got some fantastic art, which rather unusually for a role-playing game is watercolour. And so very atmospheric art. We've got a lot more art coming. In fact, the artist is coming along today.
Oh, excellent.
He's not actually a fancy artist. He is a classical artist. He's in the National Portrait Gallery's painted Prince Philip.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so he as you know, he's providing all this fantastic art for it.
Like I say, it is very unusual to see watercolours being used in a...
But the comments I've seen, the posts I've seen online, everyone has said, I'm really drawn to it by the art. It really evokes a feel.
Well, that's it as well. It'll also stand out a lot from other products.
It does. So we've got the Kickstarter going, and just a few more days, and we will finish, and we'll finish. And as I say, if we reach the 5,000 target, then all backers will also get the full setting guide as well.
Oh, excellent!
So it's quite exciting.
It certainly looks very interesting. Like I say, the artwork's certainly very striking on it.
I'm quite blessed actually at having worked with some excellent artists. Last year I wrote a children's game, maybe 7 to 10 year olds, something of that age, but could be easy to play with, probably with older and younger. And I've written it for my 7-year-old daughter a couple of years ago. She loved it, brilliant, based very much on the Terry Pratchett Witches books, the Tiffany Aching books, We Free Men and so on. And she loved it, she thought it was brilliant. I never did anything with it commercially. And then there was an artist on the Fight Fantasy forums who did some fantastic images, and I said, they're brilliant. He said, yeah, I'm a children's book illustrator by trade. And I thought, oh, there's an opportunity. And obviously you can't see these on the recording. We were able to get some colour cards done and a nice colour book. And it's, again, that's a problem-solving game. You know, it's a little bit gentler than most other games. But I was able to use his fantastic art skills to illustrate that book. That wouldn't work for Doomsday or for Advanced Fight Fantasy or for Sorcerers, but it works brilliantly for that. And similarly, the watercolours wouldn't work for this, but
so finding the right things,
find the right artist. And as I say, you know, I've been working with Russ Nicholson and John Blanche with artwork, and Chris Waller did the Mouse from Doomsday art, and he's the graphic designer for Rome Total War, and he did some incredible art for that. So, you know, and Steve Luxton does the maps of Fight and Fantasy, and he's fantastic. I'm very, very lucky in that respect.
I've got to admit, one of the things I did like about the new version of Advanced Fight and Fantasy that you re-released was, although there is some reused artwork in some of the books, obviously, there's also new stuff that looks similar enough.
Yes.
It all works together as a body of work rather than where you can look at it and just go, oh, that's the new stuff.
It's got to be Advanced Fight and Fantasy style.
That's it, exactly.
I think if you take the image out of the book and you print it on a piece of paper and you walked around here and showed it to someone and said, what does this look like? You'd want a lot of people to say, no, it's like a Fight and Fantasy image. Now, even if it's a brand new one, you still want them to make that association with that style.
Why did you make the decision with the? So I remember the original Advanced Fight and Fantasy. They were very much sort of smaller, sort of digest-sized books. Why did you make the decision to go with the slightly larger format book?
Initially, that was driven by Cubicle 7 because they were to be our printers and distributors and so on, fulfillers. And basically, they are in turn heavily affected by the distributor companies. So someone like Deviant will say, we want letter-sized books because they fit nicely on the shelves.
Yes, yeah.
And so they say to Cubicle 7, we prefer letter-sized books. So Cubicle 7 say to me, please lay out letter-size.
Yeah.
Now, you know, it works well for that, but it could equally have worked. I think we've done it in a smaller format. Yeah. But it's just done like that, and so we'll carry on like that.
Oh yeah, I very, very much like the re-release books. I was wondering as well, there's certain ones that you've recreated sort of in full, as it were. Obviously Out of the Pit, Titan, etc. There was one of the original books, I think it was Alanzia, that you've not recreated as it was originally.
There's a lot of material in there. Yeah. I mean, what we actually did was I'm not a big fan of the model where you must buy multiple books.
Yes. Yeah.
I would rather have a model whereby you sell the core book and that's got everything you need to play.
Yeah.
Now you've only got a limited selection of monsters, not very difficult to create. You've only got a limited setting, but you've got everything you need to play for years in that book. And if people buy a book and play with it for years, I'm happy. Now I'd like people to buy more books, obviously,
of course,
but I'll do that by making good books that people want to buy because they're good books and they're interesting, not because they feel they have to in order to get the full experience.
Well, I mean, I certainly have to admit, when I bought the original sort of first core book of the new re-release, I thought, I'll get the first book, have a look at it, see what I think. Obviously, remembering with great fondness the original, that's what I have to see. And I think I've got all of them apart from the Warlock and Firetop Mountain and the Crown Kings at the moment. So immediately I bought most of the other lot. So I was quite impressed with them myself.
Yes, it's the things like the Hero's Companion. I'm really happy with the Hero's Companion. You've got rules for organisations, you've got rules for mass battles, you've got rules for hirelings, you've got chaos magic, all sorts of things in there. Now, it's entirely possible to run a 5-year campaign with none of that information and it'll be fine. But equally, if you get it, you can think, oh, actually, if you're the director GM, you can think, oh, actually, I'm going to introduce hirelings or domain management or something like that in and just move my campaign in a slightly different direction. And you've got that option if you want it. You know, and so it's nice and the campaigns are good, but you don't need them. Sorcerer's Spellbook is a lovely play aid at the table, but you don't need it. So it's you know, I think it's the best model. People buy what they want to buy. You've not bought the adventures, so if you prefer to make your own, you prefer to run it without that's entirely fine. I have no problem with that. I know some people prefer to make their own.
Yes, I mean, I'm very much a fan of a sort of a toolbox approach.
Absolutely.
Where, as you say, with the player's companion, you can very much sort of dip in and take what you want out of it.
But you're not feeling that you have to buy it by there being extra rules or or spells or anything like that. There, you feel right. I'm going to have to buy it. I've never used the adventure, but I've got 4 new spells.
I do think that's something that I do prefer about the re-release you've done as opposed to the originals. In the originals, if I remember correctly, it was very much if you want to go to dungeons, you put your Dungeoneer book. As soon as you want to go to a city, you've got to have Black Sand. If you want to go to the wilderness, you've got to have Atlantis. Whereas, as you say, I think with the main book of the re-release, you can certainly play more with that than you could.
I mean, we put the city creation in Black Sand, we put the wilderness creation in Hero's Companion, but you don't need those. They're a nice tool to have, and they're useful and they're handy, but you don't need those. So it's just, you know, I write games that I want to play, and I create them in a way that I would want to play. And I think that's a good mantra to have as a publisher, because if I'm producing things that I would want to buy, then probably other people will as well. But I'm never sort of doing things that I wouldn't be happy with myself as a customer. And I think that's really key.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me.
No problem.